Hello and welcome to another revision video from me, the History Tutor, and in this video we're looking at AQA and the Elizabeth topic. We're going to be looking at a how convincing question all about Elizabeth's foreign policy. So the how convincing question is an assessment of an interpretation. That means we're going to look at the historians' ideas about Elizabeth's foreign policy, and we're going to use our knowledge to assess, is their view convincing? So we'll need some knowledge all about Elizabeth's foreign policy, in particular with Spain, I imagine, and about trade and piracy. So do revise all that and then join me for a quick quiz, and then we'll go through how to write the how convincing answer. Okay, so here's my quiz. It's slightly different to the quick quiz you'd normally find in my other videos. This one is connect the question to the answer. So connect the event to the answer. So some of them are dates, some of them are keywords, some of them are to do with people. See if you can connect them together. You'll find this in your revision guide so you can match the answers. And obviously these are great facts to learn for your exam. Okay, so pause me now and give it a go. Okay, so here is my answer. So when did Elizabeth start supporting Dutch rebels against Spain? So 1572, there was an uprising by the Dutch against their Spanish rulers. And the Dutch, of course, were Protestants, the Spanish were Catholic. And England wanted to help protect the other Protestant nations, particularly against Catholics in charge of them. And then next one, 1587, Drake sent fire ships into Cadiz port and destroyed 12 Spanish ships. What is this event known as? So that is the singeing of King of Spain's beards. By 1587, the King of Spain is organising the Armada to come and attack England. The King of Spain's unhappy with all the piracy, unhappy with the killing of Mary Queen of Scots. Drake sends in fire ships to destroy the fleet that is being developed, and this delays the Armada. So in 1585, what did Elizabeth do to help the Dutch rebels against the Spanish? So she sent Lord Dudley along with 7,000 soldiers to help. So now Elizabeth is properly getting involved in the war with the Spanish and supporting the Dutch actively on the battlefield. What were Elizabeth's licensed pirates known as? Privateers. It's obviously Drake and Raleigh would have privateers, or Drake in fact was a privateer, given a license to go and attack the Spanish, and they'd have to give some of their gold and some of their booty to Elizabeth in return for her support of their pirate actions. When did Elizabeth start allowing Dutch rebels, the sea beggars, into her harbours? So going right back to the start of the Dutch issues, when the Dutch rebels needed help. In 1566, she was helping the Dutch against the Spanish. And then back to the theme of the Armada. How many ships were in the Spanish Armada? 151. So a huge armada of supply ships, but also big galleons. And they attacked in their crescent formation. And luckily, they could not get their army in time at Calais. And the English were able to defeat them and send them packing. Let's get to this question then. So how convincing is interpretation A about Elizabeth's foreign policy? So explain why using the interpretation and your knowledge. So here is the full question. There's the interpretation. But firstly, what do you think would be a good success criteria for this question? How would we answer this successfully? Have a look at your revision guide and you'll find space to jot some ideas and think about the wording of the question. What do we need to do to be successful with this question? Okay, so firstly we need to identify two key viewpoints from the interpretation to assess. So these are opinions about Elizabeth's foreign policy. Not facts that you see in the extract, but opinions, and then we can assess them. And then for each opinion we need to write a appeal paragraph explaining ways it is convincing and or not convincing. Okay, so we can choose what we do. We can write all of it's convincing, all of it's not convincing, or a bit of both. It's up to us as the writer to choose. No conclusions really needed. We just need to make sure in our paragraphs we are saying this is very convincing because, or this is partly convincing because, and we're giving a clear viewpoint in our answer. Let's have a bit of a plan of this. Let's have a read through this viewpoint and see if you can work out the two messages about Elizabeth's foreign policy that we can assess. So pause now and jot down the ideas in your revision guide. Okay, so I found these, you might have found similar. So it says Elizabeth's foreign policy with Spain was caused by religion. I've also found an opinion that Elizabeth's foreign policy was only a success due to luck. Now, those are two great opinions because I can talk about them with lots of knowledge. We have lots of knowledge about religion, Catholic versus Protestants, etc. And we have lots of knowledge about luck with the Spanish Armada, etc. So now have a think about the knowledge you might use. So start annotating around your extracts the knowledge that might support these viewpoints, or knowledge that might say this viewpoint's not correct. So is there knowledge that's suggesting a different viewpoint? That's the tricky bit. See if you can think about that. So pause me now and have a think of some of the knowledge by looking over the pages revision guide or looking through my revision videos about foreign policy. Okay, so I've found some ideas. So Elizabeth's foreign policy of Spain was caused by religion. It is convincing. She helped the Dutch from 1566 as they were Protestants. The sea beggars were helped in 1566. She got involved in the war by 1585. She was giving money to support the Dutch from 1572 as well. So lots and lots of things that suggest it's about religion. She was also against Spain due to the Counter-Reformation in 1580s. The Spanish were sending over the Jesuits, trying to turn England back to being Protestant, and Elizabeth was executing these people. So we can step a bit wider into our other themes like religion and the problems that England faced. It's not convincing. So she caused war with Spain due to her privateers as well. That's not necessarily religion, that's about money. Her pirates going off and raiding the Spanish. That's a slightly different theme, isn't it? So Elizabeth's foreign policy was only successful due to luck. So convincing, yes, the Armada was defeated due to luck, perhaps. Luckily, the Armada's leader died and Medina Stoner had to take over and he was not necessarily a sailor. Also, luckily, there was a bad storm that smashed lots of Spanish ships and only 65 out of the 151 returned. And it's not convincing. She was pretty well organised. Her Armada victory wasn't just due to luck. She had some great leaders. She had a nice fleet of her own race-line ships that were well set up for the weather conditions of the English Channel. It wasn't just luck for her. She was also fairly well prepared. So how do we write our answer? So we're still going to use our Peel paragraph. We're going to give an opinion to start with. Interpretation is very convincing or partly convincing because, and we're going to give our argument. We're then going to give one sentence from the extract with a little quote maybe or a paraphrase to say the message of the extract. Then we're going to do the important bit. This is convincing because, and this is where most of the marks come in, that you are explaining with knowledge of the events. If we think it's very convincing, we could say a furthermore and give a little bit more information of a sort of another idea. If we think it's only partly convincing, we can say a however and give a weakness of the idea. So let's write this together now, shall we? In your revision guide or on paper. So the interpretation is partly or very convincing because, so give your opinion about how convincing it is about foreign policy. Okay, so here's my idea. It's very convincing because Elizabeth's foreign policy was dominated by religion. We think that is a correct idea mainly, don't we? So now let's give some evidence. How have we seen that point in the extract? So for example, it says, and give a little quote or paraphrase. Okay, so I said, for example, it says her foreign policy was caused by a desire to protect Protestantism. How can we explain whether this is convincing or not? We've got our knowledge in our planning box there, so see if we can explain with some ideas. This is convincing because, and explain. Okay, so I said this is convincing because her main foreign policy with Spain started with the Dutch Protestants when they rebelled against the Spanish in 1566, and the English provided help. This included allowing the Dutch sea beggars in English ports. By 1585, she sent an army of 7,000 soldiers to help the Dutch, so she was properly involved in the war. This meant war from 1585 to 1603, proper sort of battlefield fighting. So let's do it furthermore, because we think this is very convincing. So let's say furthermore, and is there another way religion is involved in her foreign policy? Okay, so I said, furthermore, it's convincing as Elizabeth was forced into war over religion in the 1580s as the Spanish led a counter-reformation against Elizabeth's church with an invasion of Jesuits that threatened to support Catholic rebels in England. Therefore, she was forced into war with Spain. Right, so I've given a really convincing idea, lots of knowledge there to explain the idea. Let's see if we can do this for the second point. Maybe we can consider here whether we want to be very convincing or partly convincing. I still think it's very convincing that the Armada was involved in luck, but you can go for partly if you like. And obviously you can then explain how Elizabeth was also quite organised herself. I'm not going to talk you through this step by step, so have a go at the whole answer, then come back to look at an example. So pause me now and give it a go. Okay, so here's my idea. I've said, secondly, the interpretation is very convincing about Elizabeth's foreign policy because it's just that it was due to luck. For example, it says she had a healthy dose of luck in 1588, and this obviously suggests with the Armada, doesn't it? This is convincing with her foreign policy involved with luck as a big factor in Elizabethan England defeating the Spanish Armada. The Armada attacked with 151 ships, so I'm going to give lots of knowledge now to prove the luck against a much weaker English fleet. Luckily for England, the main Spanish admiral had died. This meant the Duke of Medina Sidonia had to lead the army, but he was a limited naval leader. He was more of a land leader. This may have led to a bad decision at Calais to drop anchor, which allowed for the English ships to send in their fire ships. And also, England was also lucky with the storm after the Battle of Gravelines, as this destroyed much of the Spanish Armada. However, you could say it's not totally convincing because England did have a well-organised navy with the latest race-line ships that were faster and more manoeuvrable than the big Spanish galleons. And also they had the experienced leaders of Drake as well, whereas obviously Spain had a less experienced leader. I have given a little bit of a however in that, but I don't think it's necessarily needed, as there's huge amounts of knowledge already in the other part of the answer. Okay, as I said before, no conclusion needed as long as you are very clear with your answer in your paragraphs. Hello, please allow me to interrupt with a short announcement about revision guides that I offer. These revision guides are packed full of revision notes and videos to help you, quizzes to help you, and up to 15 exam questions explained per revision guide. So if you need help and you need all your revision notes and you want to know how to get a top answer for up to 15 different exam questions, then take a look at these revision guides. Also, if you want to know more or you want my help one-to-one, then take a look at my website to find out more about my revision guides and ways that I can offer help. Now, back to the video. Okay, well, I hope you found that useful about the how convincing question and the idea of using your knowledge to explain the answer. So obviously there are more of those in the revision guide, so take a look at those to practice more of that how convincing skill. Also, do have a look at my playlists and subscribe to my account. There's lots more help for AQA candidates with their exams. I hope to see you again soon. Bye bye for now.